was talking about recently the idea that I'm not sure if I 100% belong with any one person or group. I think we were talking about a couple weeks ago the sense of when you're an introvert, like there's different friends or friendships that feed certain parts of you, but you don't know if you 100% have a person in your life that just like completely gets you. And while I think I belong with specific groups and people, like the friends I have and the interests that I have, I still am unsure if I will ever find a person or a group of people I fully 100% belong in. Because we're all so unique and multifaceted, is it even possible to find a group that serves you and matches you completely? This is Coffee and Catastrophe with Brent and Gabi.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When you experience it, and I feel the exact same way, do you think it's because we're not blending in with any of the groups, but we stand out within those groups enough to where we can't really, blend in with the crowd? Like we couldn't just be like another person, like we have like such distinct personalities that no matter where we go, we have to stand out. Maybe that's it. Like that we're just like we have like more things to us that make us distinct than the group we're in, or we have more like unique interests despite like the people we're grouped with. Is that what you mean? Yeah. So like for instance, instead of being mixed in like with like we're an ingredient. So I think of myself as like, like peanut butter and jelly. You put the two on top of each other.
Yeah.
But I've never seen even in the jar that has both in there, I've never seen it to where the peanut butter and the jelly were just mixed up.
Yeah, no. And like actually that concept of like ingredients, like if there was like a nutrition label on you, like what are your ingredients? Like I now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, well, would it be like personality traits or would it be like, I don't even know, like what are the ingredients of like personality and like what makes us up? Like, is it personality traits? Is it labels and stereotypes? Like, is it like, it's not, God, this is so fucking meta. It probably sounds like I've been smoking weed for hours and I have not. But it's kind of like, do you say like Gabi is like one part existentialist, one part musician, one part interested in folk arts, one part, or is it just like compassion, confidence, ambition? Like what if there was a nutrition label for ingredients of a person, what would it be? Because then we would know like what composes a person, and then you'd know if someone belonged because like there would be like ingredients.
There might be. It's kind of like with ingredients, but no matter what, just based on my diet, I would say the number one ingredient above all else is high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, and then there's like comedy, and then there's like
red dye 40.
Yeah, red dye 40. A little bit of aspartame, and then existentialist, and then conversationalist, and interested in film and analysis and art and music and feelings, and then there's a little bit of like xanthan gum or whatever.
Xanthan gum?
Xanthan gum.
That helps like things thicken, I'm pretty sure, like stick together or like gel together.
Right. Well, that could technically be our wisdom and our lived experiences, like the xanthan gum, because, a lot of what makes us, resilient in a lot of situations under intense stress is the shit that we've experienced before.
I could see that. So you think it would be more so like interests and stuff would be like ingredients, not necessarily like personality traits?
I think it's a mixture of both, because you can congregate in a room with people who have similar interests. So for instance, I was at the Florence and the Machine concert the other night at the United Center. I was vastly different from most people in the crowd based on my interests. I don't think anybody in the crowd liked professional wrestling. I'm just guessing. Not only that, but a lot of people there probably don't like Bernie Mac the way I do.
Yeah, you have a real love with Bernie Mac. I don't think anyone else in that crowd was quoting Bernie Mac or speaking like him throughout the show.
The whole time I was just like, I was Bernie Mac.
You were Bernie Mac.
And then, yeah, but a lot of our personality traits, maybe I could have really connected, like had a lot of great chemistry with people in the crowd because I'm more attracted to like the artistic types. Not only that, but the ones who are more apt to have conversations and explore feelings, I'm definitely more connected to those people as opposed to like the more literal types, like the more like math and sciencey like minded, where where they could just see more practicality into a solution, whereas I kind of see like the journey of the emotion to it. So I probably could have connected with a lot of people in that crowd. However, I probably had a lot more differences than, likenesses. So it was probably a mixture of both, because with ingredients, it's not necessarily the ingredient themselves, it's how it's processed, how it's made. Because you can have cinnamon in a cake. If that cake is baked, it changes the way that cinnamon is, incorporated into the flavor.
Yeah, well, and too, and on an ingredients list, like everything is ordered in volume in a recipe or like a product. So like what comes first, like the first 5 ingredients are like the most prominent things that it takes to make that product, right? So I wonder what are my top 5 ingredients. It's probably something like my top 5 ingredients are probably like introversion. Oh, it's so funny too, because when we were talking about introverts, we talked about like ocean and the 5 parts of your personality, which I think are openness, conscientiousness, extroversion. I know neuroticism, I think, is the N. Assertiveness, I think it is. Okay. But if I was going to like break from that and say fuck psychology and personality psychology, which is a whole field. I took a class on it in college for a summer class. It was like the last class I needed to graduate Loyola. And it was like a summer course along with like, oh my goodness, it was a summer course on that. And I had a lab. And I think that was it. And I just lived in my apartment and focused on those 2 classes. It was a beautiful time in my life. But anyway, I think my top 5 ingredients are like introversion, art, like art-minded or art, like creative. Yeah, I almost said creative-ish. Creative or art-minded. And then probably like being a teacher is some big facet of me. Everything I want to do in life pretty much comes into teaching somebody how to do something. And I think I'm really good at it, considering like I get a lot of compliments from my students. So like, I don't know how to voice that though, like teacher. Maybe if I just like characterize it as like teacher, we have like introvert, creative, teacher, existentialist, existential conversationalist, and like there's got to be like one more ingredient.
You say like compassion, empathy, like one of those qualities?
Yeah. But I think that goes with being a teacher though, doesn't it?
Depends. I've had some teachers that had no compassion,
right.
No empathy.
Yeah, which means they shouldn't be teachers, but yeah, no. So like, yeah, maybe compassion or empathy and like those. Oh, you know what it would be? It'd be like this. Like, you know how that sometimes ingredients in the label, it'll be like one ingredient and then there's parentheses that talks about what's composed or comprising that ingredient. Like if you'll see this in flour, it'll say like grain and riboflavin or whatever. So like when I say like my top 5 ingredients are like introvert, and then in parentheses it would be like needs to be away from people to feel like a human being, close parentheses, and then creative minded, open parentheses, like enjoys art, music, and various forms of creative things and produces some, and end parentheses, another parentheses of existential conversationalist, like talks deep shit and likes being around people on occasion, close parentheses, teacher, enjoys teaching, learning, being compassionate, empathetic, and helping empower people and help them grow, end parentheses, and then there would be like one more thing, which I can't think of.
It's very astute.
Thank you. What would be your, and like then to bring it back to belonging, I don't know if there will ever be a person who matches every single ingredient that makes up me, but like I definitely find people that have like facets that relate to me. So anyway, but what are your top 5 ingredients?
Number 1 might be introversion with a parentheses on, need time for thinking and need time for self-regulation away from social norms. 2, definitely comedy. And then in parentheses, put I like to laugh. I like to make people laugh. And that's pretty self-explanatory. 3rd might be education. I love to learn. I love to learn new things. Number 4, I would say addiction. Even though I'm not like an addict in terms of, I'm not an alcoholic, nor do I do drugs or smoke or anything. I have a very addictive personality. So it's very rare in my life where I'm not completely into something or abusing something or whatever, whether it's candy, magic cards, video games, usually stupid shit I couldn't even end up on intervention for. But I have this addictive part of my personality that's tied probably a lot to my anxiety. And number 5, I would say just as an honorary mention, maybe shit. Because I usually in parentheses, I usually use shit metaphors to connect to a lot of things in life. So without shit, I don't know. I'm kind of like a mental Gigi Allen.
Everything comes down to fecal matter or farting with you.
Yeah. G.G. Allen, would just take a shit on stage and throw it into the crowd and smear it on his body. I'm like that mentally. Shit has to be introduced in order for me to connect with the crowd. But with Gigi, I don't know what the fuck he was thinking.
I think there was a documentary about Gigi Allen a few years ago, and I honestly don't necessarily want to do a deep dive into the psychology of Gigi Allen. Personally, I'm just kind of I don't think I want to know more about that person. But what he did was just crazy and awesome and scary. And it really, it really speaks to the levels that performance art can go to. I forget what her name is, but there's one performance artist who... She had a partner for a long time. They'd make art together. But one of her pieces was this room thing where she stood in a room for a day, and in the room were specific objects like roses, a gun with a bullet in it, a knife. And the audience was allowed to move her and manipulate her as any way they want. They could take her clothes off, anything. And literally she ended up topless during it, and somebody literally put the gun in her hand and was gonna make her pull the trigger, and somebody stopped the guy from doing it, put the gun away or put it back on the table or whatever. But it was kind of this demonstration that she was at the mercy of her audience and what that can do. And that level of performance art, it to me is just astounding. I cannot believe it's so interesting, but it also I think especially that moment where the guy took the gun and put it in her hand and was trying to make her pull the trigger on it, and I think they knowingly knew there was a bullet in it. And it's just that just speaks to how there's an evil part of humanity, or there's this evil part in us, or a part that just wants to watch the world burn and see what happens when we do bad shit. But that's a level of performance art that I don't know if anyone got her, although she had a partner who they did performance art with, and they did oh my God, they did these weird, these performances. There was one where they I think it's called concentric breathing, where they locked lips, and one would inhale and the other would exhale. And they went that for 20 minutes and passed out. That was a video. There's another one where they ran across the room and hit each other with their bodies, and they just did that until they were bloody and bruised, and then they broke up. And of course the way they broke up was they did a performance where one of them started on one side of the Great Wall of China and the other one started on the other, and then they met in the middle and broke up and didn't see each other for 20 years until she did a performance piece, I think at the Guggenheim, where she sat in a room with a chair across from her, and any person was allowed to sit across from her, but they couldn't talk. They could only look at each other. And many people were moved to tears or whatever. And she would do this thing where they worked it out. So the person would come and sit, and she would look down and close her eyes or something and look up. So the first time they'd see each other, she didn't know who it was. And then when she was done, she'd close her eyes and the person would move out. And then the next person would come. I guess she knew when she saw their feet or something that she could look up. And then her ex-partner came and sat down across from her, and it was a huge thing. And apparently it was supposedly staged, but they videotaped it. And it was a huge thing that they came and saw each other one last time. And she started crying or whatever. And people had that reaction with her. But even he didn't get her completely because they broke up.
What would you have done if you were just walking down the street and you saw that performance artist with the exact same setup with the gun, the knife, and roses and all that stuff? Would you do anything to manipulate the scene or the art?
I don't think I would manipulate her. I think a part of me, again, this is that empath and compassion piece. Part of me would want to stand there and make sure that no one would hurt her, and maybe that's me being as a woman I know the vulnerability of being a woman sometimes in public spaces, or where people have bad intentions and want to harm you or manipulate you. And so a part of me thinks I would stand there and make sure no one ever picked up the gun.
Yeah, you're better than most people.
Well, I don't want to think that. I want to think that we're all good and that we can all that we would all do that if given the chance. But I know psychology says otherwise, that the power of the situation really manipulates us. And especially I'm finishing right now Lord of the Flies with my sophomores, and that book just speaks to that entirely.
Oh, yeah. I think perhaps we do all have this inherent evil in all of us, and the goodness is there too. It all really does come down to choice, but our curiosity kind of puts it there, because we have to be good to kind of get along within society. I couldn't just go to work and beat the shit out of my boss for no reason. But if somebody was there and there was a curiosity thing where if my boss was like, hey, everyone just get in line and punch me in the face. I think half the people would not do it. Half the people would give it their all. Mm-hmm. And then the other half would just, not the other, there's not three halves. And then maybe a few people here and there would just, sit by and watch.
Oh, so that's actually something kind of funny that I saw this video, and it's not going to sound like it's going to relate at first, but I promise it will. There's this video circulating the internet where this dad pulls a prank on his daughter. She's probably about 9, and they're on the hardwood floor, and she's sitting down. She has a fork in her hand, and he has a water bottle, and he's sitting across from her, and he pours some water onto the hardwood floor and puts it away, and then he has a dish rag, and he's like, okay, so what you're gonna do is you have to stab my hand before I can wipe up you have to stab my hand before I can wipe up the water. And she's like, okay, and he repeats the instructions, you have to stab my hand before I can clean up the water. And she's like, okay, I'm not going to stab you. I'm just going to hit you. And he said, okay, I'm just going to hit you with the spoon. And she turned it around so the prongs were in her hand and the blunt side was what she'd hit her dad with. And I thought it was interesting because she didn't have that yay, I get to stab my dad. She didn't have that evil sense. She's like, I'm not going to stab my dad. I'll just tap him with it. I thought that was so interesting. But anyway, the ending of the video is he pours the water, obviously, and tells her the instructions. And then he's like, all right, I'm going to count to 3. And again, you have to hit my hand before I can wipe up. Are you right? And she's like, okay. And she's sitting she's sitting on her butt with her legs pointing towards him, kind of if you were going to make a triangle where you're kind of sitting upright, but you make a triangle with your legs, so your knees are up and your feet are flat on the ground. And she's there, and he goes 1, 2, and then he throws the dish rag in her face and grabs her by her feet and slides her into the puddle of water so her ass is wet. And she's like, what? Are you serious? It was so funny. But I thought, again, speaking to the nature of people, the fact that the little girl was no, I'm not going to stab you. I'm just going to hit your hand. She was given the chance, the dad said, and she consciously was no, I'm not going to stab you. I'm going to hit your hand.
She wanted to belong.
Well, is it that she wanted to belong, or is it that she didn't want to harm him?
Well, she listened to his instructions, and then they came to a negotiation. Mm-hmm. So, I'll give you maybe half of what you wanted, but none of what... I'll give you what I want, and you won't get what you want, but maybe this is a way for us to meet in the middle. So I'm still...
That's true.
Because she
I'm
could
still
have
going to, hit you with this, but I'm not going to stab you. I have my line, but I'll give a little bit to what you're asking for.
I think a lot of that is in terms of what people discuss about honesty with each other. So if you said, okay, be brutally honest with me, it's very rare you're going to run into an individual who will completely and unabashed be completely brutally honest with you. They'll probably give you constructive criticism where they might say, I think this happened while this is good. However, I just don't see this working out.
Or they'll couch it with this doesn't happen all the time, or this doesn't really sit in my mind too often, but when it does, they'll try to kind of lessen the blow. Literally, that girl didn't want to stab her dad. She lessened the blow by, she's like, oh, I'm just going to tap you with the blunt end of it.
That's kind of this exchange that we play all the time to kind of, because we are human beings and we need to be close to each other and we need to feel that sense of belonging. Mm-hmm. It's funny. I actually have been researching G.G. Allen over the past month or so.
Really?
Do you know his birth name?
No.
I am not kidding. Look it up. His birth name is Jesus Christ Allen.
What?
Yep.
Okay, so his parents were psychos is what I'm hearing.
I think his father was a pastor, and named the kid Jesus Christ, and initially...
Isn't that sacrilege? I thought you're not supposed to do that.
You can't name your baby Jesus Christ or Hitler or now Trump or whatever the thing is.
I think Lucifer is another one. Or in Australia, a kid was taken away because they want to name like Lucifer or something.
So name Jesus Christ. They changed his name, when he was a little bit older because they realized, how much this kid was going to be bullied.
Oh, and also that he was not Christly.
Well, here's what happened. Gigi was a regular guy who never did drugs or did anything wrong. And then one time, I think he was hanging out with his brother. It's funny to add, Gigi Allen's facial hair, like he has a beard and, like a full mustache, but he's missing the middle part. So it's like the Hitler's mustache.
It's like the anti-Hitler.
Yeah, but his brother only has the Hitler's mustache and it's long and
That's so weird.
Curls over his lips.
Ew.
So I think one day, like when he was hanging out with his brother or friends, I can't remember which one, they slipped acid into a Dunkin' Donuts munchkin, and then they kind of snuck it in there. So Gigi took this and completely flipped out, had this crazy-ass trip, and then became the guy he was, now known as. So what he started doing is singing and going to concerts, and, he would just shit on himself, rub it all in, and he would whip it into the crowd, piss on people. There's a rumor that he did have a girlfriend, but she left him because he set her on fire. And she got away. I don't know if that's been confirmed or denied. When he died, he died of a heroin overdose after a show where it was apparently the most violent show he's ever done. And this is in 1993.
Yeah.
So I think he had some broken bones. There was like a riot. He would set the stage on fire. But died of a heroin overdose, and he had an open casket, and he had a jock strap on in the casket, and his legs were just exposed, and
Ew.
People were just like writing all kinds of things on the casket and like putting things in there. He did have a tombstone with his name on it, and what people would do is travel from like Canada and all over the place to literally piss and shit on the tombstone. Eventually his mom had to have them take it down because she got tired of it, pissing, and shitting. And then, even the guy that, ran the cemetery was like, hey, I'm kind of tired of this. Can you, create a smaller, headstone? But fans were doing it out of respect. And I'm bringing up Gigi Allen in terms of belonging, not for what Gigi Allen did. This guy would gather a crowd of people. And, I would say, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, most of them just stood in the back of the room and observed. Some people got up front and would literally fight them, shit on it. They would shit eat on each other. They'd punch the shit out of them, knock each other's teeth out. They were really these, as the documentary said, angsty young misfits. So they had to have this sense of belonging, but Gigi just really brought it out of them.
Yeah. Well, and what I have to add to that is that when I was a freshman in college, we had to take this writing seminar, and it all culminated into a research project, and you could do whatever topic you wanted. And I researched the socio-psycho-cultural thing, what makes mosh pits a thing? How are they allowed to exist? What is what's the thinking behind them? Because I was, a young angsty 18-year-old, and my professor was like, yeah, that's totally fine. I'm interested in that. And he was really funny. He was like, well, we didn't call it moshing when I was your age. We call it slam dancing. And I was like, I've never heard of this ever before. I heard of slam dancing in jest, but never really. And so the concept that you're talking about, and liminality, is this concept where within a specific space, there are rules and norms that break from the outside, cultural and social norms. So in a mosh pit, it is completely acceptable to push people, to run into them, to dance around, to jump, whatever. But then it also has certain rules, no punching, no elbows, or whatever it is. So Gigi Allen's shows had the liminality of pissing and shitting on stage and being violent and all of that. That was fine. So his shows created this space where that was normal, acceptable, okay, and everyone was expecting it. And so in that concept of liminality, you're creating a little space or structure where you can belong and do things that are outside of social norms.
And there was one part where he did start setting the stage on fire. It went for 5 minutes before people were like, maybe this is not a good idea.
Maybe this is a bad idea.
Yeah, let's go put this out now.
That's so funny. It's not funny. It's just kind of like, yeah, like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe that.
There was like a poetry slam that he was there, and then he was obsessed with planning out his suicide, and he said
that's what I heard.
Yeah, he was like, I'm gonna kill myself on this day, and like, you know, on Halloween 2000 or on Halloween 1994 or whatever. Like, he would every year plan his suicide, and then at one of these like poetry slams, he started smashing the microphone into his teeth and forehead, and was a bloody mess. And then this woman was, I think, offended or a fan. I don't know. It wasn't very clear in the video. It was very low quality. I think old VHS. She said, kill yourself now. And then he's like, you want me to kill myself now? And then he's like, come up here. So then she just approached him, and he just started beating the shit out of her.
Oh, no.
And then like eventually like people like pulled him off, and then they got her out of there too, and then they just went and like sat back down and watched what he was doing, and
then watched more.
And then there was another show where I think he was at the New York, like, what's that New York school? I think it's Berkeley.
Berkeley's in California. Are you talking about Juilliard? No, that's in California too, maybe.
It's a New York school. It's like a bigger
Pratt, the Art Institute.
Possibly.
Okay.
He had a show
Columbia?
there. I can't remember the name, but it's like a bigger one.
NYU?
Maybe NYU.
Okay.
He was banned from there, obviously, afterwards, but he got completely naked and, just started shitting and pissing. And then eventually people just like, okay, let's get the fuck out of here. And then they just left, and then the cops came, and, the administrators just said, okay, we can't have this anymore, GG. So it's fascinating to just look him up. Like, if you're on YouTube, go on GG, like double G, and then Allen, Allin, which is weird because his name, if you break it up, it's all in. Gigi was fucking all in.
Yeah, he was.
In terms of breaking societal norms. It's debatable whether or not he's an artist, but at least some sort of like artistic value was guiding. I don't know. It really comes down to, he wanted a sense of belonging. Actually, he did not want to belong.
But interestingly, he created spaces of belonging with the liminality in terms of like, you can come up here and piss and shit and get in a fight with me and you belong. Like, that's really, I think a lot of artists do that. Like, you were talking about Florence and the Machine and how at her show on Friday, when you saw her, she created this space of belonging where she made people hold hands and jump up and down. And she even said, like, we're going to have this quote unquote intimate experience. Put your phones away and just like enjoy like the people you're around with and that exchange of energy. Like, I think that happens a lot of times or I think that's the potential that the artist has at a venue. Whether they actualize it or not is another story. I was talking with one podcast that you guys should check out is the Bundy podcast. It's a band from Long Beach, California. And me and Nani, their lead singer, were talking. And we described how when you are a musician on stage or when you are a band performing, there's this exchange of energy where what you're putting out is received and taken by the audience. And then, you have to capitalize kind of on that, not to make it sound like super capitalist-y, but you have to like really hone in on this exchange of energy between each other, that like you as the artist are putting out this, and ideally the audience is taking it and giving you back something, like their energy through dancing or singing along or at least nodding their fucking heads. I feel like that's even a new thing. Like, people just like stand. I'm not talking about what you do, because you consume concerts where you're just all in and immersed and maybe you don't really move, but you're like really there. I'm talking about people who just like stand and stare and like are not really listening. They're just like kind of off or whatever, like mentally. But like, that creates a space of belonging between the artist and the band and the audience with this like exchange of energy that's happening.
Definitely. And I thought maybe at several points throughout the Florence show, she was wearing this really nice, almost celestial, like yellow dress. It was just a really nice long yellow dress, and I thought she was going to turn around and like, have like even like her ass is pointed towards the crowd, and then you see this like pool of like brown form in the middle, and she was going to shit on stage, and then just, like, what kind of man smells like piss? And then just started pissing on people, and I'm like, oh man, Gigi Allen's kind of the only guy that did that.
Yeah, no, I would actually, like, if I saw a band and they started, like, pissing and shitting on stage, like, I would not be happy about it. I would leave, probably. Like, I saw the Growlers a few weeks ago, and, like, if they pulled that shit, I would not be happy. I'm seeing Violet Femmes in a couple weeks, and that's, like, if they start doing that, and be like, what?
Well, it would kind of fit the name. violent femmes, they're doing. I mean, that's shitting and throwing it on people is technically violence. It
is violence that I don't want to be a part of. I was once spit on at a show, by the performer, and like that was like acceptable to my teenage brain. But now I don't think I would like that necessarily. Like the bassist like took a swig of water and like spit it at the crowd, and I got that like all over my face and was like, yeah, that's I don't know if I want to call that violent. But I'm also like, oh my God, this man was like probably 30 and like spat water at like a 14-year-old. Or also like Karen O was very famous that one time she took a swig of beer and spit it into the crowd, which I think is awesome. But yeah, is that violent? I did not feel like I belonged. But then there's some people who want people to spit on them.
I would only want Selma Hayek to spit on me. Kate Winslet. I'll say Kate Winslet. And The Rock. Those are the three people I'll just willingly have spit on me.
I don't want to be spit on. I don't want to spit on somebody either. Like, I do not like that. I've been asked to do that, and I don't like that.
Yeah, don't do it then. But I'm just saying, if The Rock was just like, come here, jabroni. And then I'd have to do it. I couldn't say no to The Rock.
Yeah, come here, jabroni.
But no, he has to be in character. He just can't be like, hey, what's your name, Brent? Hey, Brent, nice to meet you. I'm Dwayne. No, I'm like, it doesn't matter. Rudy Pucandias. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. No, I would never. I feel like the spit. Nah, I can't feel like I belong if they're spitting on me or spitting at me.
Yeah, I've never had this. I mean, when I analyze it, I know it's going to sound shitty. I've never 100% fully belonged in any, I guess, circle or group that I've been in. They've all just I've been included and I've been welcomed, but I, in retrospect, have not felt belonged to where it was meant for me. Like, I went to this church on Friday nights, Paradigm Cafe. Mm-hmm. I love that time, but I think it might just be more me not feeling belong because they really liked having me there, and I was a non-religious outsider, and I was a regular there, and I was treated as such, and they were really cool to me, and I had some amazing times there. All my friends at film school, I felt welcomed and included, and we still try to get together to this day and like have this big old group and like just laugh and talk. The lunch table in high school, we were all just the class clowns, and I was just sitting and watching like Adam shit in a bag, and it felt great. And like, even with my volunteer work, I have an interest where I want to try to change the world and use my words to do so, however that looks like. And I know I'm very different than a lot of the other people I share that work with. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that I'm above them or I'm below them or any, definitely not like that at all. But I'm just trying to figure out this real sense of belonging where I can completely let my guard down and shut off the way that I shut off when I am by myself in my room past 8 p.m. and I'm having that introverted recharging. I don't know. I think that sense of belonging is just when you're at the right place at the right time for the right reasons. And I've had a lot of those, feelings. I felt like I've been in the right place at the right time, maybe for not the right reasons, or I felt like I've had the right reasons to be in the right time, but not the right place. So it's always just kind of been pick two out of the three. I think if you have all three, maybe you have that true sense of belonging and acceptance. And I think for me, I have this element of self-sabotage to my personality, but I try to do that to gauge who I'm around. Yeah. So I might say a lot of things that are inappropriate or offensive or just flat out weird. And if they stick around, then I want to, I feel more comfortable around them. Yeah. So I think like just even with both my jobs, I definitely feel included, but I often feel like I'm invading other people's spaces. It's weird, like, especially my volunteer work. I feel like I'm completely invading, I'm just coming in there and I just, completely, I'm like, wow, I don't belong here. Like, I always have that feeling wherever I'm included the most, I have this feeling like there's something about this where on paper I just don't belong here.
Well, but so like, I had two thoughts in response. One is do we all feel like that in a certain sense? Like, I think I feel like that sometimes. So maybe I think we all feel like that at some point or another. The other thing that was in my head was like, maybe that like when you and I are feeling that way, we're just not trusting and being confident in the fact that we do belong in those spaces. Like maybe this is like a confidence thing or like a, you know, I'm not to invalidate what you're feeling because I feel it too. Not a lot of the time, but I do feel it. And like maybe we're just not being confident in like understanding that like, sure, maybe there's like characteristics that make us different from the group, but like maybe everyone's like that. But that's not true. Not everyone is like that. Wow, this was really uplifting in my brain and now I'm just really depressed. Not depressed. I'm just like having a moment of like, oh, fuck, wait, maybe I am just the weird one that doesn't feel like they belong all the time.
I've come to accept that, you know.
I've come to accept that no one understands me.
Yeah, I think I'm tolerated. Maybe I've had this analogy on the podcast before, but I feel like I'm not around a group of dogs where they like, you know, like let's just say like you go to a puppy shop, which I love doing from time to time. I just go to a puppy shop and play with the puppies. And
Don't.
Yeah.
Don't do it. You know, they euthanize those puppies after 24 weeks if they can't sell them.
Oh, no. Not the, no. Well, but yeah.
Are you thinking of like the pet store or like an adoption facility?
No, like not the one where they're in like cages and shit. Like the ones like where they're like treated nice. Like, well, they're probably not treated.
Are you talking about the one on Rollins?
Yeah.
That so Cody's mom has a friend who used to work there. They euthanize the puppies after 6 months old if they can't sell them because it's cheaper for them to kill a puppy than it is to sell it for a lower price.
When I'm around dogs,
I'm sorry, I totally hijacked your like lovely moment. That was like the most vegan I've ever got on this thing. I'm so sorry.
Oh my god.
Yeah, dude, they euthanize puppies.
So many pugs that I've Lion King, like where I just held them up in the air and shouted, and people are looking at me like what's this faggot doing? And I'm just, that's just how I love it. And then they went and chopped them up and fried their faces and ate them.
Not even. They just injected them and killed them and threw them in a trash bag because that's cheaper.
Oh my god.
And they're also usually really sick. That's the other thing. They come from puppy mills. They're very sick. I could go on this forever. I'm so sorry, guys. I can't believe I just like hijacked that and like made everyone really sad. But don't buy your dog at a pet store.
Anyway,
so
when it comes to people, at least with dogs. Oh shit. Are like the people that are like really nice and happy to me, are they just gonna die in a few weeks? Like I'm like, oh man, I met this guy named Jeff or whatever, and then like, you know, like I hang out with him, and then they just go and kill Jeff like 3 weeks later because no one wants Jeff. Like,
I mean, maybe not.
They're gonna do that to me. They're gonna be like, well, yeah, you're a nice pup, but you're not purebred.
Yeah, you're a nice pup, but you know what? No one wants to give you a home, so it's cheaper to kill you than keep you around.
That's how I want to go out. Like when I'm old, like I want to go out like a puppy mill puppy at the puppy mill. Like I want to be at the puppy mill.
Well, the puppy mill puppies like usually like live in shit and die from like horrible disease and are matted and like live horrible lives. But I'll take you out like Old Yeller or kind of like George and Lenny in Of Mice and Men.
So
where you don't even see it coming, and I tell you about all these happy things, and then bam, you're dead.
What's the story where the story ends where like the guy's like breastfeeding, and then like this it's like a famous story. The guy's just like on this woman's tit, and then it just ends.
What?
I don't know. There's like
actual fuck are you talking about?
There's like this famous story that like everyone read as kids. I mean, like Louis C.K. did a bit on it. Like where like there's like a book where like this guy just like, I don't know, this woman was breastfeeding like a dude, and then like the book ended.
Okay, like, is she actually producing milk?
I don't know. I've never read the book.
Or is he just like suckling at her teeth?
Like that's how I want to go out.
You want to go out with your boob in your mouth? I think that's like how every guy wants to go out.
Yeah, but like in like a field, like, you know, like with the sun setting and like just, you know, because I like the sun and you know, I like, you know, outside like springtime.
I like outside and I just want a woman's tit in my mouth as I die.
Yeah, or that or an armpit, like one of the others, woman armpit right in my face as I go out, and then, you know, like just like huff it like a rag.
You don't want to be face down in pussy?
That too, but I want to huff that like a rag with ether. So
oh my God.
Just pass out and
I can't believe I just fucking said that. Oh my God.
Well, I'm just saying, if it's better than just like, going to the bathroom, and then just going, and then falling down the stairs, like knocking my noggin on the ground.
Knocking my noggin.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't want to go out with a boob in my mouth. I want to go out in my sleep peacefully. So like, no, and I don't want to have to be hospitalized. Like, but I also like don't want like my partner to be like, good morning, honey. Kisses the cheek. Oh God, you're cold. Let me warm you up.
Yeah.
Gabby? No! Like, I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't know that it happens, so I don't know.
I mean, I wouldn't know. But actually, like, what if I do know? My biggest fear is that death is like, you can hear and see everything around you, but you can't do anything. Like, you can't move or talk, but you're just conscious.
It's pretty much like working retail. So
don't I fucking know it? That's
why everybody in retail wants to die, because there's really nothing that's like worse than that.
It's I sent you a link to my newest found joy in life is watching videos of Steve Harvey reacting to people on Family Feud. Mm-hmm. And like I just want like a slowed down close up of his face and like Mad World playing, like just quietly, all around me are familiar faces. But that's how I feel like working retail. Well, that's like constantly playing in your brain.
Well, that's definitely what I'm going to feel like whenever I like, play with a box of puppies now. I'm going to just be very sad and somber.
Well, again, like you can play with a box of puppies like at a shelter or like at an ASPCA or something. But like, yeah, no, a pet store, like unless you can get like the pedigree information, like you should never buy a dog unless you've seen like where the mother lives, unless it's at like a shelter, of course, because oftentimes like they are even like quote unquote certified breeders. Like it's really fucking sad. And also like I love corgis, you love pugs. Obviously, we want to have like a dog of those breeds at some point in our life to like cherish and like have a puppy companion that's a pug or a corgi. But at the same time, like there's already so many dogs that need homes, and you can even find pug rescues. There's corgi rescues. Like it's possible to adopt them without like buying them because there's already so many dogs that need homes. I'm sorry, I'm going on like such a rant right now. I apologize.
Well, one day I hope to at least, be amongst the dogs, but that's kind of how I felt, where I never felt like I was around like groups of dogs, like where they just like give you all this like love and like undenying like affection, and I don't know, there's just such like this warmth with dogs, and I love them. I always felt like I've been around company of cats where like they'll just tolerate me, like they'll like they'll rub their stench on me and then walk away, and they're completely independent. And like, if you show up or not, it's just like, okay. I kind of felt that. I mean, that's actually very unfair of me to say. I felt very welcomed in a lot of places I've been to. Yeah. Internally, that's how I do.
Which again, because it's internal, like quoting Mary Carr from she had that episode of On Being that I listened to with that bit of wisdom that like, if you think your world's crashing around you and like you're gonna hurt somebody or yourself, just like stop, make yourself a sandwich and like start there, and like maybe take a nap and like go through all these things before you kill yourself or something. In that same episode, she talked about what's the source of your information when you have these thoughts, because oftentimes you've like made them up yourself. Like for example, if you think like the thought that I used to have a lot was like, I'm a fat, ugly piece of shit. And it's like, who in your life is telling you you're a fat, ugly piece of shit? Literally no one. I am the only person who tells myself that. I've made this up in my head. And that's why. And then I look for the reasons. I look for, to make it logical. But in the reality, I'm the one who thought of that. I'm the one making myself feel like shit. So maybe it's something like that. And again, I totally am there too, where I like think about like a friend group, or I'll think about this other group that I like belong into. And I'm like, and I almost have like imposter syndrome. Like, I don't belong here. I'm not like these people. I don't blah, blah, blah.
Oh no, I totally get that too, with a lot of like circles that I'm in, where I just feel like I just kind of like somehow hijacked my way into this group of people, and now we're sharing like our minds. It's totally
imposter syndrome, like in a new form.
Dude, totally. Like I feel that There's really nothing that I am participating in now where I just don't feel like that. Like, like my college job, I'm like, oh, I've had that for 10 years. And what? Like, I'm like giving advice? Get the fuck out of here. So.
Well, and you're really respected and do a great job. And like, no one at that place would say otherwise. So you're the one, if you ever feel like you don't belong there, like, you're the one telling yourself that. No one else is saying that. It'd be a different thing if the directors were like, Brent, after 10 years, we just don't think this is a good fit. Like, well, first off, you wouldn't be there for 10 fucking years. Like, that wouldn't happen. Wow, 10 years. That's like so beautiful. That's like so nice that you've been there for 10 years. And it's such an amazing place.
So what's going to happen is I'm going to go into work on Thursday, and then my boss is going to close the door, and then there's just to be a blanket on the ground. They're going to say, lie on the blanket. And then my boss is going to hold my hand and just say, like, you've been a very good tutor, Brent. And then they're just going to inject me with all kinds of shit. And then I'll just be put to sleep very sadly. And then, like, they'll have, like, 10 guys, like, lifting the blanket, carrying my dead weight. And then they're just going to throw me in the trash. And then the wheel will continue spinning anew.
That really hits home because that's exactly how it well, I wasn't there for the last half of it, but that's, like, what happened when, like, we put Black Hawk down. Like, that's like, oh my God, I can't believe I just fucking said that.
Yeah.
We put Black Hawk down, but that was the name of our dog. Hawk for short when we put Hawk down. Oh my God, Black Hawk down. Oh God, it's like my brother thought of that when he was 7. Like, when we get to put this dog down, finally it'll make sense. Oh, Black Hawk down. But yeah, like literally, like, to again hijack this conversation into sad talk about like dogs dying, there was a blanket on the ground that we sat him on because he couldn't see. Obviously, he like lost his sight, and so he's lying on there. And like they buzzed like part of his hairs, and then they give the dog. And I'd never been in the room before when this is happening because I wasn't there when Shadow got her thing. But they give them a sedative first that like he just kind of like got real quiet, and he like put his head down, and his tongue got a little floppy, but like he was just kind of like there. And like slowly breathing. And then they give them a small injection that has like the drugs that stops their heart. So that's what it would be like for you. But my mom and my brother sat there. I after they gave him the sedative, and like I sat with him when they came in to give him the final injection. That's when I left. And then my brother's girlfriend was in the lobby, and like I was sobbing and she was sobbing, and like the saddest part of that was like I had like these like sunglasses on, and like we were leaving, and I was like crying really hard and like snot everywhere and wiping myself clean, and like this guy like holds the door open for us, and he like looks like he was like going to move like to open the door for himself, and then we were coming out. And like, you know how if when that happens and you hold the door for me, you're like, oh, I'm sorry. But like this man like didn't say, oh, I'm sorry, because like he was trying to move at the same time. He like looked at my face and the fact that I was sobbing, he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And like knew like this bitch just put her dog down. Oh God, that was a horrible. I mean, it was a good day because we released him from his suffering, but it was, oh my God, that was a shit day.
That's how I want to go out. Like, I mean, in that scenario too, like just on the blanket, like in like my boss's office, and then maybe like have the janitor put her tit in my mouth, and then I'll just, kind of go out that way. And she's like the only one unaffected by it because she does this all the time. so she just like, they're like, all right, thank you, Esmeralda, you can go now. You're like, okay. And then like,
wow, way to be stereotypical. Way to be stereotypical that the janitor is his Latina lady.
Actually, way to assume, because I was thinking she'd be Chinese.
You are such a dick. That's not funny.
So you're the one that made it racist, not me. I was thinking of a Chinese woman with dreadlocks the whole time.
His name is Esmeralda.
Yeah.
You're a dick.
Why not?
You're a dick. Yeah, so now that everyone thinks that we're racist again, God fucking damn it, Brent.
Yeah, Gabi.
Excuse me?
Yeah,
Excuse
Gabi.
Me?
Yeah,
Excuse me?
You're more racist than me.
Excuse me? Excuse me?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Like, you have black hair, but that's an excuse. You have more blonde than black hair.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I'm kind of out of shit.
Yeah, you are completely out of shit at this point.
So that's why I don't feel like I belong. Because this is what I do to myself.
Because you put your foot in your mouth repeatedly?
Yep. All the time.
But that's like also like I really had a revelation that like you are an auditory processor, and the way you work through things is through talk and dialogue. It's probably why you really like humor and comedy, because that's all like a verbal thing other than slapstick. It's mainly the type of comedy you like. Sure, slapstick's funny, but you really like thoughtful humor. Like, you know, the forbidden comedian Louis C.K., like he was really like thoughtful and funny and could like make things hysterical that like aren't funny, and like was really like thoughtful and like very just able to manipulate and talk about things and like not manipulate and like not manipulate in a bad way like what he did, but yeah, no. So I think that the reason that you find yourself saying things that are wrong is because you're an auditory processor, and like but that's like how you think about things. And then like, you know, you're wrong because people will say something, or I'll make a face or like whatever. And I mean, you know, you're being funny then, blah, blah, blah. But like, yeah.
Let's go with that.
Okay, that's like my like 2-second interpretation of it.
No, it's a very good interpretation. I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm just saying like that actually works in my favor.
No, it does work in your favor.
So let's go with that.
He says stupid fucking shit because he can't think otherwise. No, I'm just kidding. Right. I'm just kidding.
Well, that is very true, because a lot of the time, I think that's what really helps me out with my introversion, is because I talk with other people, I have deep conversations, I learn something, and then what I do is I go home. And then that last 4 hours I have right before I go to bed, I just process the day, I learn, and most of the time I become a better person.
Well, and you talk to yourself is what you said. Again, that's auditory. Mm-hmm. You're talking to yourself because that's how you process.
Yeah. So in terms of feeling like belonging, I don't know if I'm ever going to have that, but I'm okay with that. Maybe like it'll all make sense one day when I'm a lot older.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably just me getting out of my own way. There's very few groups that I have been a part of that I have just been rejected from.
Yeah.
I can't really think of one. I mean, everybody like that I've been, like I said, the church and high school and, you know, like there's always been a part of a group where I should not fit in, but I do. Like I've always been like the jelly in the jar of the peanut butter, and that's just been kind of okay. So I'm enhancing people's like lives and perspective, and as they're enhancing mine, I still try to connect with every person that I like, you know, talk to and like fuck up around. Cause
well, yeah. Well, and it would be I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of peanut butter sandwiches. Like peanut butter and jelly is the way to go. Like it would just be a shitty sandwich, no pun intended, because we were talking about shit earlier. But it'd be just a crappy sandwich if it was just peanut butter in my eyes.
Yeah. So I think I'm very at my worst, I'm just tolerated. At my best, I'm accepted. And I think I'm okay with that.
I think that's how it is for everybody, to be honest. Like, and now that I really like what you said, like getting out of your own way. Like that's like something I've been trying to really meditate on and like practice, is getting out of my own way and like letting the things that are supposed to happen and stopping myself from achieving what I want to do because of my own insecurities or bad habits or, you know, all that stuff.
Like, when did you start to become aware of like your, I guess, thought process around feeling belonging? Like how old were you? Like, was there a period of time? Like when did that kind of start, you know, clicking in your brain?
It was probably when I had my first like group of friends around, like, I don't know. I think I've always had a sense of like being like, I had facets of myself that belonged, but others that didn't. And I think that started like as young as like when I was like a ballerina, the way it like I studied ballet or like was in dance. Like I think the way it manifested originally was I literally look different than these other girls. And like that was one way. And that always like sat with me. But then it also further manifested with like especially in like middle school, like I was kind of accepted or brought into a group of girls who were already established because I was brought to a new school. And then once I left, they maintained their like group and squad or like whatever. There was 4 of us, so I guess that makes sense with quad, but like still that sense of like not being completely included. And once I left, it like that sense of like not being missed or not, you know, they were fine without me or like whatever, like nothing really changed, which probably isn't fair, but like to myself especially. But even like my friends now, I know they don't feel this way, and I do add stuff to the group, but they were also formed prior to me like coming and meeting them and being added to the friend group. And I think a part of me also, you know, when on those really bad days looks at that and thinks, you know, if I left this group, it wouldn't matter. If I left this group, they would carry on without me. If I left this group, all that stuff. But that's really not true. That's like me, that's me getting in my own way and being unsure and not confident in like what I contribute to other people's lives. So yeah, I would say I think it started like very young, just like that awareness. But I think now I have the leverage of experience and wisdom to say, yo, dude, that's you just like putting yourself in a bad space. You're not being loving to yourself. You're trying to make yourself feel bad when you think that way. And that awareness is like what I think is beneficial. But yeah, I think it comes like really young. And again, I feel like if you and I feel this way, I think probably everyone has something that they feel this way, be it their coworkers or their friend group or their church group, like something like that. I feel like it has to be there because imposter syndrome is really big. So
I definitely agree. I think maybe, well, right now we're being very vocal about it. Mm-hmm. But most of the time I don't really have these conversations with a lot of people because I feel like at least with all of my friends, I would say probably all of them, I know probably the most about them than any of their other friends.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that still blows my mind to this day.
Well, and I think it's part of it is that you're so willing and want to have deep conversations with people.
Yeah, like it's still like we're, you know, if I'm the first person to know something, or if I'm the only person to know something, or if I'm like the first person they've said it around, I'm just like, what? Like, dude, I just got done talking about like smelling hair and armpits and smelling pussy like a rag with ether on my face.
Yeah,
and now I know your deepest, darkest secrets. Like when I analyze it, it sounds fucked up, but
you're
there's
like, why
something
me?
there. Yeah,
but think about that. Like the thought of why me comes from a place of like insecurity, well, curiosity as well, but like also like some facet of insecurity of like why am I privileged with this information? Why am I the person who they tell these things to? Like that's definitely like I think that comes from a space of like insecurity, which is wrong because like, dude, stand within your power and how awesome you are. And I sound so fucking hippy dippy, but that's like what happens now. I literally couch everything I say when it comes along this regard with like, this is going to sound really hippy dippy, but, and it honestly harkens back to, what is the name of the comedian who was old, who died, who you saw them really envious of?
George Carlin's
Hippy dippy weatherman.
Yeah. But I don't know. I would say own that shit, dude. That's you.
Yeah, no, dude. But you also have to own you. That you're like awesome and you bring out the best in people, and that like you bring out their introspection and their reflectiveness. And you're also so caring. You are Big Mama.
I'm Big Mama.
You are Big Mama.
That was my nickname when I was in film school because whenever we would be on film set, I'd have my little hand warmers and like I would have all kinds of like water and supplies and stuff.
Like taking care of everyone like a big mom.
Yeah, so I'm Big Mama, dude. And like just talking to you throughout this episode, I've realized there has only been one place I ever felt like truly belonging. And that's within nature, when I've been completely by myself. Mm-hmm. Like when I'm in a forest reserve or when I'm like just like completely surrounded by absolutely nobody and no cars, no technology. It's just like birds and like, you know, turtles and shit, like water and, you know, just the sound of like the water, like all that shit. And that's where I really feel truly belonging. But I think a lot of that comes from maybe that is like, you know, I'm part of this earth and I do want to genuinely make it into a better place. Yeah. It's just kind of hard to interact with a lot of people sometimes because I need their help. Yeah. You know, and
versus being alone and being self-reliant and self-sufficient, like what Thoreau and Emerson wrote about. And actually, when you were talking about being in nature, are you familiar with Emerson's concept of being a transparent eyeball? No. It's literally like he says when you return to nature, you become a transparent eyeball. You see everything, but you do not like add to it. You're just eyes at that point.
That makes a lot of sense, too. You know, I would like to read more about that and just kind of like really delve into it because that's exactly how I feel.
I will give you so much homework. You have no idea. I love Thoreau and Emerson. They're the transcendentalists. Did you read them at all when you were in high school?
No, I didn't.
Ooh, have you seen The Dead Poet Society, that movie?
No.
That's basically all about transcendentalists. So now you have homework. I'm going to assign you like readings on Emerson and Thoreau, and you're also going to watch Dead Poet Society because it includes everything. God, I love that movie. It's so fucking good.
I'm going to do it, dude, you know, and I think when I try, I have a very sensitive sense of like other people who are trying to belong, because I'm like this, I don't know, like with my personality, I really am, I guess, thankful that I really see so many people from all walks of life. There's really no group of people nor individual that I just don't or haven't interacted with openly.
Yeah.
Like people I've disagreed with, people that I thought I would hate but ended up loving, people I loved and ended up hating.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I'm really seeing that like there are some people like who just really want to belong. And it's just, we have a lot of very strict rules about that. You know, at that Florence and the Machine concert, I mean, there was probably stereotyping. There's probably like thousands of like gay kids there.
Yeah.
Gay, trans, I've seen, just like even in my section, like a lot of like gay, trans kids. Mm-hmm. But that fucking woman, Florence.
Yeah.
Not like that fucking woman, but like, you know, the way she like connected everybody.
Yeah.
And like made them like just forget pain for just a little, like a tiny bit. Like we were there 2 hours, and like then they go home and then they go back to their lives.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just not to suck my own dick here, but I don't know. I feel like I'm that way with people.
Yeah, I think you are.
I make that forget. So I'm also trying to really seek out other people to do that to me.
Yeah.
To make me forget and stuff. But I don't know. I think it's a nice thing to have like that in life. Like when you're able to just, you know, create my own belonging. I think that's what my problem is right now, is I'm trying to find my own sense of belonging, and I have to do all of the work to complete it, as opposed to just feeling like I'm infiltrating other groups and other circles. Because I think that sense of belonging deep down is a sense of community. If you have that sense of community, you know, and just like talking with them, am I making any sense?
No, you are completely.
Okay.
It's also like internalizing you belong with yourself, and that you are worthy, and that you belong in this planet. Like that's another thing that like needs to be internalized, like with you and I, that like we add so much to other people, and that maybe we won't be 100% understood by a group because we have these unique facets, but at the same time, like we still have a place on this earth and are doing good things and good work. Like I think of how with every person that you really like meet, and like whenever you sit down, you always ask them like, yo, so like who are you? Like what makes you tick? You've always, like, that's one of your go-to things. Like I remember like when we would have coffee with our good pals Sam and Yvette, like the first time like we all like got together and like sat down, I'll never forget, you always ask like, so like who are you? Like what makes you tick? Like what are you afraid of? Like what do you want to do? Like you really are kind of a transparent eyeball, or you're like a mirror, and you just sit there and you don't judge, you just listen, and like it's amazing. And so I think that in that regard, it's interesting, because I would be willing to bet that every single person feels like they belong in your presence when you're talking with them. But maybe you just don't feel that way because you play that role.
Jesus
Christ, Alan.
Jesus Christ, Alan. But like, there's probably something like deep down in me that kind of needs that reassurance, because it often goes within conflict. Like I'm always self-sabotaging, so I kind of need to always be checked in, but that's like impractical. But like, okay, Brent, that was really fucked up that you said that. Everything's cool. But I guess enough about me for now. Like, has there ever been a part in your life throughout any age where you just genuinely felt like you belonged where you were at and what you were doing?
Never, ever in my whole life.
Not even like a fleeting like moment? Like have you ever shared that like with a person?
The only time I ever feel a sense of belonging is if I'm like if I'm performing like on stage, or if I'm like when I'm with Kyle like in the studio, like I feel like I belong, but like, or if I'm in the front of the classroom and I'm teaching, I feel like I belong. But beyond, or like when I'm talking with you, I feel like I belong, but that's like really it. But again, I think that's just like, we are unique people. I think I'm not as much of a mirror as you are, but I know I still do that for people. Maybe it's just the fact that we're fucking empaths and that we like are really reflective people. But yeah, no, I don't think I've ever I don't think I've ever felt 100% belonging. I actually wrote a poem this morning, or I'm trying to get into this practice of writing a little bit every morning. And, I wrote about the fact that like we all, like all of our burdens and our pain is dropped when we are in the arms of a stranger. And that like, this comes from my own like experience with like dating random people and being intimate with like people who I don't necessarily, that we didn't have like a dating relationship, but like we were intimate with each other, and how like that feeling of safety and warmth and laying down your burden, you know, it's kind of like if they're in bed, you like lay your burden down at the, you know, at the foot of the bed with all of your clothes, and then get inside each other's arms and bodies or whatever. And like that is like a space of like warmth and safety, and that there's feelings of belonging there. But when you have to put all your clothes back on and leave, you have to take your burden back and your burden with you. But when you're in a stranger's arms, like then it, you know, you don't have that with you. So like maybe inside someone's bed, in someone's arms, I've felt belonging, but there was a bunch of moving parts at that time. So maybe it was other things too. But yeah.
Jesus Christ, Alan.
Sorry.
No, I mean, that's like a good Jesus Christ, Alan.
Yeah.
Not like, oh my God, what is going on? I am judging. No.
Yeah, no. I just feel like, I feel like sometimes you have like fleeting moments of intimacy with people that feel like a lot of belonging, and it doesn't have to be physical intimacy. Like anytime I'm intimate with somebody, like I would consider this podcast very intimate. Like what we do is a very deep, intimate thing. Obviously we don't have sex and we don't touch each other, but you can have that verbally with people. And I feel that belonging and that connection, but you can also have that physically with people during sex, before sex, after sex, all that stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I think belonging comes out when there's connection, deep connection, verbal, physical, emotional.
Of course. So yeah. Is it possible to have that outside of a relationship?
Yeah. I mean, when you say relationship, you mean romantic relationship?
Yes.
Because like you and I have a relationship as friends, and we find this connection and belonging when we talk. And the funny thing is too, like, I know all the differences between you and I, yet we still belong. Like, I know of all of your like differences from me, and I still feel like we belong, and we've created this thing together.
Likewise.
Yeah. So like, I think it's possible. I think it's totally possible. I just think that like, there's no other moment that there's no other moment I can think of that's like a random act or feeling of belonging than when you are intimate with a stranger, or like someone you're like just beginning to know. And there's that like, I don't know, there's just that sense of literally laying your burden down with your clothes and then hopping into bed with somebody.
You think it's because maybe you're projecting what you hope that person is into that moment?
Yeah, maybe. Or like in that moment, we both are like comforting each other, like physically. You're both giving each other what you want, ideally. Maybe it's really bad and you need to leave and take your burden back because it's better to be outside than to be in that bed. But like, yeah, no, like, and that's like saying like if everything is like good and fun, like, you know, there's obviously times you get into a stranger's arms and it ends up like not being good for you or whatever. But yeah.
In the arms of a stranger,
fly away from here. No.
And then they just like slowly put the stranger down.
Slowly put the stranger down. Oh my God. We've come full circle.
Yeah. Like, please help the strangers. And then there's like one with like a black eye and like just dehydrated. And there's like, if you just donate $1 a day, we could help the strangers. Oh boy. And I think we've just closed this chapter on belonging. Yes, we'd have.
All right. Well, this was Coffee and Catastrophe with Brent and Gabi. If you liked what you heard, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or CastBox. You can also like us on Facebook at Coffee and Catastrophe, or follow us on Twitter at CCWBG.
In the meantime, take care of yourselves and be good to each other.
Bye, guys.